No role plays, just real. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader.
We've never really, as a workforce, spent a lot of time on making sure we're developing good leaders.
We'll be able to share stories, experience, mistakes, failures, successes.
This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, on this episode, I want to talk about an article that I saw in the Harvard Business Review by Laura Otting. We'll post a link to the article. It's called How to Re-Engage a Dissatisfied Employee. And I like this article a lot, and I read it twice already. You know, I obviously I shared it with you too. There's a lot to unpack in this article, a lot of good stuff here. And so I don't know that it necessarily needs a series, but I kind of want to go over it over 2 episodes because I think we'll do it more service if we can talk about all the elements of it as opposed to just a few. And again, we will post a link in both these next 2 Monday episodes to it. But in general, the article talks about 4 ways to re-engage a dissatisfied employee, and some of them are kind of aligned with each other a little bit. And so on this episode, I want to go over the first 2, which are aim for work-life alignment, not work-life balance, and then finding out what drives your employee, and then reshaping that job potentially together. And then on the following episode, we'll talking about engaging employees in recruiting processes, and then connecting their work to the larger picture of your organization. And so the first thing I want to ask you is, you know, what were your initial impressions when it came to this article, especially when it comes to the idea of re-engaging a dissatisfied employee? I mean, we are in the midst of the Great Resignation, and people are leaving all the time. Sometimes the first time you're aware of a dissatisfied employee is when they come in and say, "I'm out." You know.
Yeah, well, I think first I have to, accept probably my bias on it, which is when I hear like kind of dissatisfied, I immediately go to like they're kind of completely checked out, which is not the case, right?
Sure.
Like a lot of times. And I think that what's nice about this article is that it's a reminder of there are small things, and there are things that can be done and conversations that can be had that it's not about a disengaged employee, it's about a dissatisfied. And that's the first thing that I had to kind of like check myself on is, what are those things that can be done, and how can you make sure that you're constantly considering how you are engaging and how you are bringing people together into the work, how you are thinking about what they're trying to achieve both at work and personally. So again, it's a catchy headline. It's a good little click kind of baity headline, but I really enjoyed reading through the different things and then considering, again, like, are we proactively doing things to make sure that we are providing every opportunity and experience to everyone to make sure that they are not only satisfied in the work that they are doing, but they feel a part of the larger work, and they feel a sense of being seen, being heard, being included in the work. And I think that that really, really good leaders do that naturally, but we also have to continue to think about the speed of evolution and expectation when it comes to leadership right now. I believe we are in a time where the expectation of leaders is skyrocketing in a lot of different ways, from how we talk to people, how we engage with people, the questions that we ask, how we include them in the work, how we challenge them, how we help to pull them through things that they're working through, how we help sometimes to push them through things, but always with a sense of care, a sense of empathy, and a sense of empowerment by including them in there. So there's a lot going on right now, and so I kind of had to, as I mentioned earlier, kind of check myself a little bit and be like, this is not an article about somebody who's like, there's no way, I don't want to be here, I hate this place, it's no good for me. This is not that type of thing. But when we hear words like that as leaders, we can tend to start to think that way. So I enjoyed it, and I think it's definitely something that we need to discuss, talk about, and continue to have dialogue with.
I love that. The 2 things that I kind of want to talk about first, in general, kind of bigger picture stuff here, is one, this is based on a survey that the author herself did with almost 6,000 workers across various industries, but the age range was the age of 25 to 45. Right. And so, so think about if you're listening right now, think about that context, is that these types of things, I mean, they apply to everybody in general, but the survey was talking to people between the age of 25 and 45. the thing that struck out at me was that the survey started in January of 2019 and it went to December of 2021. And one of the things the author found was that there was virtually no difference in the answers from the ones that she got in the first year versus the second year of the survey. Meaning, this is not COVID driven or COVID response driven. This is these things that workers were talking about as the items that dissatisfied them or the items that would help them be re-engaged. This was the case in 2019 and in the beginning of 2020 before COVID. And that's a really interesting thought because, I think a lot of the things that we're seeing right now in workforce changes related to the Great Resignation, a lot of it is due to the fact that, COVID in general, I think it kind of jolted people into reprioritizing a lot going on with their lives. It's part of it is just kind of being forced to face your own mortality. Maybe someone close to you was impacted by this. Maybe it was that shutdowns and work from home kind of hybrid environments or completely work from home environments allowed you to spend more time doing things away from an office building. And then a lot of people said, wait a minute, why would I ever want to give this up? For whatever reason, and there could be lots of them, people are the COVID epidemic as a whole has driven a lot of these behaviors. So it's really important to know that these things that employees were saying were long before COVID started. This matters because it means that if you are thinking, we're almost through COVID, right? We're almost back to not back to normal, but back to figuring out how this is just a part of our lives now, and we're moving forward with it. And there's not a lot of reacting in the moment. We kind of have plans in place. And so when you think about that, don't think that this doesn't apply. It absolutely does because it applied before it began. And so the first element that she mentions is aiming for work-life alignment, not work-life balance. And the age range of the employees that she spoke to in 25 to 45, if you think about what happens during this age range, and you and I are at the tail end of that, but we are still absolutely part of it. This is when our responsibilities and our jobs are expanding, our careers are expanding, but we also have the expansion of our personal responsibilities too. There's the decisions that we're making around work are absolutely through the lens of how will this impact our families. We're married, we have kids, and we can't just decide on a whim, oh, you know what, look at this. My career would do better if I moved to China for the next 3 years. I'm just going to go ahead and say yes to that without having a conversation. Obviously that doesn't happen anymore. It's not in the vacuum of the decisions that we were able to make when we were 23 years old. And so employees in this age group are doing these things in their lives. And a lot of times, if their job is causing dissatisfaction, it might not necessarily be that they don't like the job anymore. It's just that it doesn't allow them to do all of the things that have been added to their personal lives that maybe they didn't have to worry about 10 years earlier. So I think it's a huge reason why if you're a leader of people, like you might be thinking, wait a minute, this person's doing this job for the last 5 years straight. Why are they all of a sudden dissatisfied? Nothing's changed. Well, yeah, maybe nothing's changed in what they've been asked to do at work, but a lot has changed in what they've been asked to do outside of work.
Another thing to consider is just even the idea and the language when we say something like work-life balance. What that assumes is that these are opposing forces, and like it's one or the other,
right? And
you're trying to find balance, and the reality is there is no balance. You know what I mean? Like the way in which you perceive the work should be, I work for my living. I don't live for my work, and I need to find careers and jobs that allow me to find, some joy in what I do that allows me to then bring that joy and achieve my own personal goals. And I think that that's why there's been so much dialogue in all these different spaces around the reshaping of work and work from home, work in office, 4-day work weeks, like all of this dialogue that's happening all over all the industries, I believe is really speaking to this idea of saying, can we work hard at our job, but do it a little bit more on our own terms that allow us to do the things that are either, maybe mandatory or optional, where like if you have a family, if you're caring for a loved one, if you have other things that you've got going on in your personal life where you can commit to doing good work, you can commit to working 40 hours or more, but those hours have to be in certain times of the day or certain days of the week to allow you to handle the things that you must handle. And then there's the other side of it, which is then, having that same type of control and understanding of when and how you work so that you can then achieve maybe the optional things that you have, whether it's a hobby or a side hustle or school or whatever the thing is. And I think that now that door has been somewhat opened, and I think some of it, and I love your point about saying that like the data and the answers really haven't changed, throughout all of the COVID stuff. But I think that COVID, that shutdown, and that either whether you were furloughed, you worked from home, you made a career change, like all these things that happened in that space, I still firmly believe that it was a little bit of an awakening for a lot of people to consider the things like, what's the work that I enjoy? What's the things that I want to do? And again, some of that was forced because people lost their jobs and had to figure it out. Some of that was found because people got some more time back in their day as a result of traveling less or driving to work or those types of things, or they were at home working from home, which then opened up more access to family. And like, there's so many things that happened that I really think that this conversation has been ongoing, but now it's such a big part of where do we go from here, that I think it's something that all leaders have to really wrap their head around and make sure that we are connecting with people in both of those spaces. What are you looking to achieve here at work? What does that look like for you? What are the things that you want to accomplish, in the role that you have? And then also, how is that playing out in your life? How is this informing the things that you want to do and allowing people to share? They don't have to, but if they want to, what are those personal goals? What are the things they want to achieve in life? What are the things that would bring them great joy? And then helping to marry them as much as we can, and or sometimes just sharing your own personal stories and testimonies of how you've been able to work and also find joy in these other types of things. Because sometimes that's all it takes for people to feel engaged and seen is being able to have a leader share with them that they've either been there, or they're also going through that, or they're also thinking about how do these things play out.
Oh, that's so true. I think because of the age range of 25 to 45, you could have people who are in 3 different levels of leadership. You could have a newly promoted leader, and a then that person's leader, and then that person's leader, a manager, a senior manager, and a director, or even a senior director, who are all 4 in that age range of 25 to 45. And so they're all going through this, but at different stages. There could be a lot of relating that goes on between these people if they could talk about it in that context. I think the idea of finding out what drives the employee and then helping to reshape their job with them, what this looks like to me is not just assuming that the employee is going to reach out to say, hey, look, this is changing in my life. I would like this to be different. They might not believe that it's possible, or believe that I don't want to say an accommodation can be made, but that a reshaping of the job altogether can be made in order to allow this to happen in their personal lives. They might just assume that that's not possible. And what happens when that happens is if they decide that what is driving them is just nagging so much, that's when they leave. That's when they first disengage, and then they leave the organization. Believe me, if we're talking about how to re-engage a dissatisfied employee, the likelihood of your dissatisfied employee just staying dissatisfied but with your organization for the next 10 years is slim to none. And even if it were possible, why would you want that? Why would you want a dissatisfied employee working for you? They're not going to be working hard. They're not going to be getting, bringing their best selves to work, or producing whatever they're supposed to produce at the level at which you would like them to produce. And so, getting them re-engaged in the work process is important, not just from a lowering turnover standpoint, but just from a raising the performance of that employee and their team as a whole. And so having the conversation as the leader, bringing it up to the employee and saying, let's talk about this. Is there something going on, or is anything changing in your life that you need me to help you make sure that you can get both of these things done, that you can get your work done and you can include this part in your life? There could be employees who are thinking about things like, an aging parent. Maybe they're thousands of miles away from somebody that they need to be closer to, and there's a way to let you get them closer to those people geographically without leaving the organization, or changing where they say work is every day. And so there's a lot that can be done that you can't necessarily assume the employee will say to you, "This is what I need." If it comes from you to begin with, first of all, it will be looked at as proactive instead of, reacting to the employee. And even if there's nothing that can be done by you as the leader on a very, tactical, these are the things I can do, having the conversation will show the connection between you and that employee. And at the very least, it will open up that dialogue. And maybe more can be done over time. Maybe if nothing can be done at that moment, but being able to have that dialogue on an ongoing basis can at least make sure that that employee understands that you as their leader actually care about what you're saying. And depending on your position, you may have more ability or less ability to make that happen for them. But the conversation itself is important as a first step to re-engage that employee.
What's the second?
That was it. That was engaging them. That was finding out what drives them and reshape their job together.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Did you say that actual term?
Yeah.
Okay. Damn it. I missed it again. I don't know why. Yeah. I think it's because like you didn't preface it as the title. Like you just brought it on as dialogue. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I didn't say the next thing she says is finding out what drives it. Yeah,
right,
I know.
Right. Because they're so combined, it felt continuous. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it felt
okay. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
The way I said it was, and when it comes to finding out what drives them.
Exactly. That's what
I said. Yeah.
All right. Hold on. Okay. Let me see.
And so I said, the in general, that was have that conversation with them to make sure that you can.
Yes, absolutely.
That that you're proactive on it, and that you're not just assuming they're going to come to you.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, and I think it's like, again, just to echo a little bit from earlier, just that ability to engage with people and include them and align with them and really understand where they are today and where they want to be tomorrow. Both personally and professionally. That is such a big part of it, because I think we're all going to have parts of our job that we're dissatisfied with. Everything,
sure.
Like all of us. Like either there are things that you just absolutely enjoy doing. We've talked about it on the show before. Things that really like fill your cup and really like bring you just a level of energy that's just amazing. And there are parts of a job that don't. There are things that you have to deal with, that you have to work through, that you got to spend time on. That can be draining or just not your favorite parts of the day, and that's gonna be with anybody. Like it's just there are things that you have to work through, understanding what those are and being able to accept them. And then in cases like this, when you're talking to people and about being satisfied at a job and being engaged. I also think about I share those things, and that's what I would tell leaders, to share that you feel the same way about certain things. Like, I really love this part of my job and what I do as a leader and these things that I'm responsible for. And these are some of the other things that I just like, they don't fill my cup. They don't give me energy, but I know I have to do them. And I got to do them well. And I have to make sure that, they're reflective of the work that I want to be able to accomplish. And I think when you share things like that, especially with those that may be dissatisfied for certain reasons, number one, by engaging with them, talking to them, helping connect some dots, but then also sharing with them that you also feel similar ways in certain things, I think that creates an element of trust and relationship in work where people are a lot more, a lot more, I guess, excited to share with you what exactly it is that they want to do and where they want to go and what work makes them proud and what makes them happy at work. And so I just think that there's so much of this. The dialogue is so helpful. But like I also want to underline this point. Just because you start doing this today doesn't mean you'll get that type of a reaction tomorrow. if you've not built these relationships over time, if you've not had positive engagements, if you've not had those conversations and established, a connection that really shows people that you care about them professionally and personally, this would be difficult. Now, there always has to be a day one. So that's the good news. There always has to be a day one. And so beginning it, and even if you're going to do that, or if you feel like maybe you don't have that level of connection, you need to say that up front. You need to say as a leader, look, I feel like I have not done well in this space. I feel like I have not proactively wanted to connect with you to better understand, the role in the organization. What are the things that you enjoy? What are you looking to accomplish here? And also, how does that help accomplish the goals that you want to do personally? Like you have to say that out loud. To at least get people to understand that you understand that this is something that might be a little bit awkward up front or that they're not used to. But I think if you own that and you walk them through that, and even if you've done a good job, but you really want to land that point home, you could still do that and bring people along in that dialogue. And I think that will be really helpful in both, empowering them, working with them, but then also making sure that, that they are feeling good about the work and that they are, that they feel a part of the work.
Yeah, that's so true. Acknowledging the current state of the relationship in a way that the employee would agree with too, instead of glossing over it, assuming that you've gone from never having said a word to this person that is not job related to assuming that you are being asked to be the godparent of their child. You don't get to talk to them like that if you've never talked to them like that before. And so just it will be the elephant in the room of what is the current state of the relationship. Acknowledging it for actually what it is will mean that the employee's not just thinking that the entire time, and they're at least not they're not just dismissing anything you have to say as disingenuous or as placating them or trying to change them because you will help you as the leader get your team more productive. You're actually trying to help them get what they want to get done in their personal lives. The last thing I want to touch on in this is, and this entire episode I've been thinking about something that kind of keeps jumping in my mind, and it comes to what it is driving people and how to connect them to their job. Remember that Venn diagram that we've seen for the longest time, and it's like it's the three circles, and one of them is something you love to do. The next one is something that you're good at. And then the third one is something that you can get paid for, right? And the idea is to combine all three, and then that's your job in the middle. And we think about that as like this is the job I want to do. But in actuality, there's no such thing, or at least, very, very few people are in jobs where wholly 100% of the work they're putting into their job falls into that center section. Mm-hmm. It should be as much as possible, but it is possible that a lot of the work they do falls into the part of the diagram that only aligns with two of those three things, right? And so if it's something that is a part of their job, it means they're getting paid for it. Hopefully it's something they're at least good at. And so even if it's something they don't love doing, it checks off the other two, and then as much of their job as possible should be in that center section where they actually love doing it as well. But not everything has to be in there. And a lot of this is going to be aligning with your employees on this idea that just because they've seen this diagram on Instagram for the last 20 years doesn't mean that a lack of a 40-hour job that wholly fits in that center section means that they should be dissatisfied. You absolutely should and could be satisfied with a job that has elements of it that you don't absolutely love doing. They could be draining on you, or that you just would rather not do. It's the idea of, does the whole job allow you to check off all three of those boxes and not just none of it. If none of it does, then they should probably move on.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1 Minute Hack. But first, a few words from our sponsors.
The 1 Minute Hack.
All right, for this episode's 1 Minute Hack, here's what I want you to do. Get out your pen and paper and make a list of every person reporting directly to you. And then I want you to make a time on your calendar to have a conversation with each of them, talking about this exact thing. What drives this employee, and how closely aligned is their job to what drives them? And the first thing you have to do is acknowledge for each person, to yourself and then to them, where your relationship with them is. Either you're really close with them and you connect on a lot of levels that are not work related, or maybe there's a couple of connection spaces, or finally the last category would be, I have almost no connection to this person at all. It's a completely work relationship only, and I would never have a conversation with them outside of work if one of us were to leave the organization tomorrow. And the context of these conversations you have when finding out what drives the employee and how to engage them in getting more of their job aligned with what drives them, or aligned with their personal lives, is acknowledging that state of the relationship, and then having the conversation with the employee afterwards. Make a time to do this with every single one of your people, and start the ball rolling on ensuring your employees know that you consider that a part of your job responsibilities is helping them get where they want to go as much as you can, or at the very least being able to know where they want to go, so that if things come up that allow you to get them closer to it, you can. That effort that you put in will help them re-engage in their jobs, even in the interim, while you help work to get them, a permanent solution or a better solution. Just that kind of acknowledgement from you and that work together will start that process really well.
Yeah, I think it's a great woman to hack, and we've spent countless hours on this podcast talking about connection, building relationships, and and engaging people in a way that includes them in the work, and allows for there to be a larger connection than just being a cog in the wheel of a big system. And I think that that's never been different, but I think it's so much more top of mind right now than ever before. And again, as we've said, like I like the fact that the bar of expectation is rising in regards to how people feel about leaders. And I mean, it was the whole genesis point of this show was to, what can we do as a larger workforce, to help leaders become better leaders. And I think that this is a time that we're looking at right now that is truly going to force this shift in leadership to really start to think about the whole person and include the whole person, and allow for them to come to work and be who they are. And I think when that happens, people inherently will take more calculated risks, and that means they're going to learn more, and they're going to be more engaged, and they're going to be more effective, they're going to be more innovative. And so, I just think we're at a time right now where we're going to see, kind of the great unleashing, I believe, of power in regards to people feeling confident in the work that they want to go do, and finding places where they feel treated well. And then as they appreciate that, they're doing fantastic work.
I think that this comes down to also something we've talked about since the very beginning too, which is that you have to actually want to do this. Like if you're a leader of people and everything you're hearing here is you're thinking to yourself, this is going to be difficult. How do I connect with this person? How do I start this ball rolling? If you already want to, at least, like if you believe genuinely that this is a part of what your role is as a leader, is to help your people accomplish these things, then you're already far enough along where you'll figure this out. If you are having a hard time getting there and even thinking that this is your responsibility as a leader, there's going to be some soul searching that you're going to have to do before you have these conversations, because they will come off the wrong way if you don't, at the very least, get to the point where you think, I actually have this responsibility and I like this responsibility. You might have to get there on your own before you have these conversations.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.